Welcome to the Rusted Garden. Today is April 28th. I'm going to give you a tour of the garden from this side to the other side, and then I'm going to walk back through because today is all about getting peppers and tomatoes into the ground. We're finally out of our freeze, our frost, our crazy cold weather, and we have the heat coming next week and for the rest of April. So it's time to get those in the ground. I'll give you tips on tomatoes and peppers as we walk through. You don't have to start all your stuff indoors. Of course, you get them started indoors, you will get produce more quickly to your table. But these are my Indeterminate variety tomatoes. I didn't start them inside, just dropped seed a couple days ago. I'll let these grow in here about 3 to 4 weeks, and then these will go out into my garden. I started a lot of the Determinate variety tomatoes. Those are tomatoes that get to a set height, set their flowers, produce their fruit, and then they die off. Indeterminate variety tomatoes will grow and grow and grow. Now these are beat up. I'll give you a couple tips on what happened. They were looking great indoors, got them into cups. Now coming out into the cold nights, sometimes it got into the 40s. That's going to make your tomato plants look like this. That's why you don't want to rush them outside. When you're not really in the 50-degree upper 50s at nights, your tomatoes just kind of shiver and sit there. We also then got tons of rain, which filled up these trays. You don't want your tomatoes sitting in water, especially cold water. It's going to just, slow them down, and they're going to look like this. These will be perfectly fine. So after rain, make sure you dump your trays out in the morning and again in the evening. Just don't let them sit in water. It's too cold, too wet for them. The tomatoes here are beat up on the leaves. That's from the acclimation process when I was transitioning them outside. They got sunburned, they're going to die off. That's okay. Here are some really purple looking tomatoes. Perfectly normal because this is an All America Selections winner called Midnight Snack. It's high in anthocyanin and it naturally has this dark purple color to it. Now here are some nutritional issues right in here. That's a smaller tomato. Can't read what it is. Might be a Tiny Tim. That veining, that's because it's struggling. It's going to be okay. So what I do, this is where I would use the chemical fertilizers. Not a ton of it, but just a water-soluble chemical fertilizer is going to give these plants the N, P, and K, all the micronutrients they can, get them back on track, and then you could go back to your organic process. Of course, if you want to be 100% organic, you wouldn't do that. I don't strive to be 100% anything. I just try and do better each year, and I also use what's needed for the plants. Chemical fertilizers will not hurt your plants, they will not hurt you. Those are flowers, All America Selection winners. Some of them are a little bit beat up. Again, that's from the cold. Don't worry about it. They don't look as good as they did when they were indoors, but they're going to all get out into the garden too. Coming across here, if you want to start your cucumbers, your squash, zucchini, melons, start them in larger containers outdoors. 2 or 3 seeds into here. Thin them down to 1 or 2 plants depending on what you're growing, and then these will be ready to go right into the ground in about 3 weeks from dropping the seed, or about 2 weeks from germination. You don't want those plants sitting in these containers. If you let your vine plants, these bigger plants, sit in the containers too long, they start going to try and flower, and they kind of get like bonsai plants. So once they germinate, in about 2 or 3 weeks, you want to get them into the ground. I've got my container potatoes. They're starting to come up. Cilantro, which is a crop that you can actually grow early in the spring. They can take a frost. A lot of people think cilantro is a warm weather crop. It will grow through the warm weather, but it also can take the cold. Got my seeds started of lettuce, spinach, probably some endive in there, into containers. Alright, let's get out into the garden. I've got more seed starts. These are all the plants that we're growing indoors. Those are potatoes, and these are the blue seed I don't know why I keep saying peppers. Potatoes, and you can see how well they're doing. You can grow peppers in a 5-gallon container. Just fill the container, put the potatoes about halfway down, and they will do their thing. These are the my lord, these are the potatoes that if you cut them in half, they're purple. Coming across this way, these are all the seed starts that I did indoors and you saw in other videos. And I'm going to get a lot of the peppers into the ground. Over here is where I will have peppers go in. They do need support. Peppers are pretty sturdy and stocky, but they snap real easily. So you want to support your plants, your pepper plants. I mean, I think things are looking good for this crazy weather that we had. If you remember the plants in here, and you've been watching my channel, these were covered in snow. I had storage box bottoms like the ones right over there in the upper left corner covering these plants, and they survived well. And this is part of the reason why starting greens indoors is a good idea, because I have just a harvest to take now. That's Bok Choy white stem, spinach in there, all kinds of different lettuces, and really in the next 3-4 days I can start harvesting that. The kales that I started indoor in, that's a premier kale. Peas, Roxane Radish, another All-America Selections winner. It's one of the best radishes. If you struggle getting radishes to form, you get lots of green, but you don't get the radish. The Roxane Radish is a really great radish to grow. I have a video specifically on that on my channel. Kohlrabi, right in the corner there, right in front of the owl. And actually, I don't know if I talked about the owl. The owls actually work, but if they're sitting in the same place, the animals become used to them. So if you hide them in your garden, like a rabbit coming around the side, will see that owl and be spooked, but it can't see it from the rest of the garden. So if you use the owls to kind of keep rabbits away and stuff away, make sure you move them around. Peas are doing well. Everything is growing as I want. In here, and again, you saw the lettuces across the way. They're almost ready to harvest. I dropped these as direct seed into the flower boxes on April 1st. So they're growing, but they're not nearly as close to size as the plants I'll be harvesting in a couple of days. Spinach up there, that's the kales that I started indoors. And these are all being grown as cut and come again lettuces. Just so you know, you don't want to grow your greens that closely together if you want a full-size plant. But when these get to about this size, I'll cut them off, leave the roots in the ground, and I'll keep coming back until the warm weather comes. Just got myself a composter, which I'll be talking about in other videos. These were all indoor seed starts right in here. Mustard greens, lettuces, more kale. And a tip I have, which sounds kind of simple, is grow what you eat the most and what you like the most. I am cutting back on the different things that I grow. I love growing them. I love looking at them. Sometimes I don't really eat them. I give them away. People get tired of it. After 6, 12, 18 zucchinis, people are like, thanks, but no thanks. So I'll be probably doing just 2 zucchini plants here, squash plants. That's a goji berry doing well, waiting for the fig to pop in there. That is my grape, seedless grape. Now, a lot of people in Maryland Zone 7 say, can I, grow fruit in containers? And of course you can, but the question they ask is, what's going to happen in the winter? Well, the goji berry and grapevine actually spent 2 years growing in a 5-gallon container, just like that Brown's one right there, through our winter in Maryland Zone 7, where it would freeze through, and those plants did perfectly fine. You just have to find hardy fruit plants that will be able to take that freeze, and you can grow them in containers. I moved them out of the 5-gallon containers because they were getting to size. I wanted a bigger place for the root systems to grow, so I put them into those containers. More seed starts, doing really well. That is a tomato in the hothouse tomato cage that I talked about, I think, in the last video, and I'll just give you a look at it. It's done really well. Now the biggest issue now is to make sure the top is off, because the frost isn't going to harm this plant, the cold isn't going to harm the plant. You're going to bake your plant if you don't have air flowing through there. This is an area I don't think was in the last one. I've got my onion seed starts down, leeks right in there, and then I planted more kohlrabi, different radishes, and some bok choy in there. This is where I am growing the beefsteak that's going to beat Cali Kim. And I don't think it's broken the surface yet, but I think it will in the next day or two. And this is going to be my large beefsteak garden right here. So I'll be getting some plants into here over the next couple of weeks. That is a video I just did for sinking a tube into the ground. That goes down about 2 feet, 2.5 feet. And it's a compost tube. I'll be dropping, well I am, but I'll continually be dropping compost in there and watering that way. It'll give a nice deep watering to this garden bed, and it'll wash some nutrients at the deeper root level. The garlic's doing well. That was all planted last late fall. And now we're towards the end of the tour. I'll be getting this whole area set up with tomatoes and peppers, and then I'll do a quick walkthrough and show you that and give you some tips on how I planted them. So today is May 2nd. It was 85 degrees today. Now, the beginning of the video was shot on Saturday, and I said the frost was gone, and that was not true. We got frost Sunday night actually, and Monday night, so I'm going to show you what I used to protect the plants. So I'm a little bit behind. These 8-foot stakes are going to be in a video. I'm going to show you how to make a 14-foot trellis. Get out of here, Bee. A 14-foot trellis, and I'm really using that for my hops plant, but you can also use it for your green beans. Now, that's a large red cherry. That's one of my indeterminate varieties that are in right now. Right now I put in all determinate variety tomatoes. Determinate variety tomatoes will get to a set height. They're good at flower, they're good at fruit, and after they're done producing, they die off. And I plant them indoors early. Those are the transplants you saw really upstairs on my deck. And I get them out first into the garden, even where, you know, there's a risk of frost coming, because I want them to grow. And in my area, the diseases really kick in after this first wave of tomatoes will die off. So you can kind of time tomatoes to work around when you might get early blight, and that starts coming into my area really mid-July. That is a tomato that was in the hothouse cage. The frost is definitely gone now, so I took the cage off, and I thought that was another cherry tomato, but I think that might be a early girl or some sort of hybrid that I had seeds for that I mislabeled. But it's doing really, really well. That's a determinate variety. Now we're coming over to my containers. You can grow determinate variety tomatoes really well in containers. These are probably about 7-gallon containers. That's a Floridade. We have the Ace 55. The numbers on the stake are when I started them indoors and when I got them into the ground. And then over here is your Roma Tomato. All determinate varieties. Just a small basic cage will take care of them. And again, these got in early into my garden. They're going to grow, they're going to develop, and before the early blight comes, these will be done producing. Let's come over here. Right in here is where I'm going to be dropping those 14-foot, 16-foot trellises, because these hop vines will really need to crawl almost 16 feet tall. Let's step over this way. Everything survived the frost. These are all going to get picked 3 days later, 4 days later from the video. You can see how much bigger they got. So they're going to be cut tonight for some lettuces. I did get the peppers in. Excuse me. Now, I know that's annoying, but my allergies are kicking in now. So I did drop in the peppers, put in the stakes. These are all of my hot peppers. I have a ghost pepper there, red cayenne, hot Portugal back there, jalapeno, peppercini, facing heaven, a pepper that I really love. I still have some of those dried that I use on pastas. The orange cayenne, an ancho, and more, well, that's an early variety jalapeno back there. One tip I have is, of course, stake your peppers, because they're stocky and strong, but they do snap pretty easily, so you definitely want to support them. But you can see how these are at an angle. You can angle them away from your other plants, give more space for airflow and more light to come in, and just let them kind of grow into my walking area there. Over here are my sweet peppers. I have a YOLO in the back, golden Cal Wonder back there. That is a Purple Beauty, California Wonder. And again, you can plant peppers a lot more closely together than you might think. There are 2 sweet bananas right there, and then, you know, just 6 inches away is another banana pepper. And I'm running a little bit of an experiment there to see how closely I can pack these together. You definitely can grow 2 peppers in one space like this. This one may have some trouble, I don't think so, but I'm going to get huge production out of this small space by putting in 3 peppers. And even if they suffer a little bit, let's just say in size, you still end up with more peppers. And I like to kind of do it this way. Suppose one plant produces 50 peppers. And if you put in 2 plants, they only produce 35. Well, 35 and 35 is 70, so you get more than the single plant. So yes, production might come down a little bit, but you do end up with more peppers that way. And again, you can see the angled stakes. That's just a way to kind of create more space. And I think I have, what's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 11, 14, 15. Some of them are doubled, so probably about 20 pepper plants in there. That's just a 4x8 space. It's going to be huge production. And the hot peppers today, right here, won't affect the sweet peppers today. So when cross-pollination happens, it doesn't make the peppers over there hot when I pick them for this season, but if they cross-pollinate, the seeds that I take and plant next year may produce spicy peppers. I had to change up my shelves with the frost coming. These all came back inside for 2.5 days. And you can see the plants are doing pretty well. Tomorrow it's going to be 90 degrees. 3 days ago we had frost. But the green is coming back. That's the purple midnight snack, staying purple, looking good. I fed the plants. They're staying nice and green. When you have peppers this size and they're going into the ground, you can go ahead and pick the flowers off. Just let them worry about getting established in the ground, building up a root system. They're going to flower plenty. Also got in my eggplant. Drop them in right in there. I have a large purple and a black beauty. They did really well last year in these containers. Best production of eggplant that I've had in 10 years. I used to put them out in the garden, but I couldn't really keep a great eye on them, and they always got flea beetles on them, and they just devastated. So when they're right here, I can manage the flea beetles a lot better. Now, I didn't show you the corner over here to my left we'll get to. That's all planted with the different tomatoes. That's a Marglobe, semi-determinate. Works really well in a 10-gallon container. That's going to need a cage around it. But I dropped in all of my other determinate varieties. The Baxter Bush, semi-determinate, Siberian, Mountain Gold back there, the Rutgers, Glacier, Bradley, Silvery Fir, which I really like the leaves on here, and an Early Girl back there. All the determinate varieties, all going to get to a set height, produce flowers, set fruit, and then they're going to die off, and I will replace these with either another round of determinate variety tomatoes in July, or maybe I'll put something else in there. The peas are doing pretty well, and everything's looking pretty good. And I want to say one more time, we are finally out of the frost. So in Maryland Zone 7, you can start getting in all the plants that you need. If you do run into a weird issue with the frost coming in or it's getting too cold, this is what I covered my plants with. I used some flower boxes, and one flower box would cover 2 plants. I used my bigger storage box bottoms, my smaller shoe boxes, this container here, cups, whatever I needed. And let's just finish it off with the tomatoes and the plants over here. 10-gallon container, you can put in 2 determinate varieties. Because they're not indeterminate, indeterminates grow and grow and grow until frost or disease takes them. They will do perfectly fine in 10 gallons of earth. Coming around this way, I have my dwarf. This is a Hans Gelbe, it's German. A viewer sent this to me, and I've got 2 of them in there, so I'm really curious to see how well they do. And this is a Tiny Tim that I sell on my seed shop. Cut and come again lettuce. As I mentioned in the early part of the video, it's doing well, and you can really start cutting it, you know, when it gets to about here. Definitely once it gets to like this height, make sure you cut it out. Hope you enjoyed the video. This gives you some ideas of what you can get out into your garden in Maryland Zone 7. And I'll be shooting the video on building a 14-foot, 16-foot pole trellis for beans, cucumbers, and hops. Thanks for watching.